Hi everyone, Yasas Kasseri to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're going to be making Kasseropita. Kasseropita is basically Kasseri cheese pie. Kasseri is a traditional Greek cheese that's made usually with sheep's milk, and it's aged not that long, but it's a semi-hard cheese that tastes very buttery, slightly salty. Depending on how long it's aged, it's going to be a little bit saltier, but it almost smells like mozzarella. It's so delicious. Very similar to Gruyere, but not as tangy as a Gruyere is. Almost like if you've had kefalotiri, maybe if kefalotiri married mozzarella, it would have Kasseri cheese. It's delicious. If you can't find it, I'll definitely put substitutions or alternatives on the blog post, and that way you can use whatever you have on hand. It's delicious. You definitely want to make this one. Comes together in like 10 minutes. Let's get started. So you're going to start off by grating between 300 to 400 grams of Kasseri cheese. I always go higher whenever I'm using cheese in a recipe because it makes it more delicious. Go ahead and grate it using a box grater and set it aside. And we're going to make a bechamel, because if we were to put straight Kasseri cheese into the pie, it would be a little too much, too dense. You can use Kasseri cheese maybe with some cold cuts like basturma. It would just be really good, but on its own, you need a creamy sauce with it, and it's so easy to make. In a saucepan that's heating over medium heat, you're going to add about half a stick of butter, that's 50 grams. Unsalted butter is best, and then about 4 tablespoons or an equal amount, which is 50 grams of all-purpose flour. Heat that over medium heat until the flour is nice and toasted and a roux is formed. Then you're going to go ahead and add 2 cups of cold milk, and we're going to season it with a little bit of salt, pepper, and a little bit of grated nutmeg. I like to add a little less than a quarter teaspoon so it's not too overpowering. Mix that all together. Once it heats up and comes to a boil, it's going to begin to thicken. As soon as it starts to thicken, take it off of the heat, and in another bowl, go ahead and beat 1 egg and add some of the hot milk mixture to the egg, so that way you can temper it and so that way it doesn't scramble once you put it back in. Put the egg mixture with the cream back into the saucepan. Mix it all up and add the Kasseri cheese. Give that a nice mix. You can taste it at this point to see if it needs a little more seasoning. And then you're going to set it aside because it's time to roll out the puff pastry. I'm using puff pastry for this just because it's easy, it's simple. You just take it out of your freezer and you roll it out and you can put this pie together. But you can use phyllo. If you're using phyllo, you're going to need several layers, and then you're just going to butter each layer and do exactly how we usually do when we make a pie with phyllo. You can use a pie crust like a cream cheese pastry. You can use kuru pastry, which I've made several times on this channel. The options are endless. You can make your own phyllo like we've made for spanakopita to give it a more rustic flavor, but I do love the flakiness of the puff pastry, and it's so easy. Just go ahead and roll it out. You want it to be bigger than a 9-inch round pie pan, which is what we're using. So get it to about 12 inches. It's not going to be round. It's still good. Mine comes as a rectangle, so I just roll it out so it's bigger, so it can go up the sides of the baking pan. That's really what you're looking for, and a little bit bigger than that so you can create a nice crust with it, a nice border. So go ahead and roll that out. If you can find round puff pastry, go ahead and use that. That'll make life easier. Just again, roll it out so that way it's bigger than the pie plate and that it can fit up the sides of the pie plate and extend a little bit outside. We're not taking out rulers for this. We're just doing it by the mati, by the eye. Go ahead and put that first layer on the bottom of the pie pan, then pour all of that delicious cheese filling, the creamy cheesy sauce on top of the puff pastry, and then roll out the second sheet of puff pastry again. It doesn't have to be that big this time because it's just covering the top. Put that over the filling and then gather all of the edges together and just roll them up to kind of seal them. You can make a nice decorative crust if you like, but once the puff pastry comes to room temperature, it's kind of hard for it to hold a shape. So if you want to be very fancy with it, you can take this at this point and pop it in the freezer for about 20 minutes until the butter solidifies again in the pastry, and then you can decorate the sides however you like. But again, we're keeping this simple and rustic. Brush the top with an egg wash. I just beat together an egg yolk with a couple tablespoons of water. You can use milk. Mix that all up and brush the whole top and sides of the puff pastry. And then you're going to want to cut little slits. I like to cut 4 slits on the top so that way the steam escapes. And then I also like to sprinkle the top with some black sesame seeds. You can use white sesame seeds, or you can leave the sesame seeds out. At this point, you want your oven to be preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to go in and it's going to bake until it's beautifully golden and puffy. Ovens vary. It can take up to an hour. It can take 45 minutes. Keep an eye on it. Once it's nice and puffy, take it out. Let it settle and cool for like 20 minutes before you serve it. And then I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. I'm gonna clean up in the meantime, and then we're gonna do the taste test. Okay, so the Kasseropita is ready. It took almost an hour in my oven. I did want it to cook for a while because I wanted the bottom layer of pastry to be nice and crisp and fully cooked too. So sometimes the top does tend to get more golden and then the bottom is not cooked. If your oven browns too quickly on the top, you can loosely cover your pan with some foil. Make sure to cut some holes in it so the top doesn't steam, right? And then as soon as it comes out of the oven, let it cool for a good 20 minutes or so that way the cheese and the filling has a chance to set. I never mentioned where you can get Kasseri cheese from. If you have a Greek specialty food store or a Mediterranean specialty food store nearby your home, you could probably pick some up over there. I bought some on Amazon because the one that's by me is actually like an hour away or 45 minutes away. So I just purchased it on Amazon, and I will put the link in the blog post right under the recipe card so that way you can get some from there if you'd like. I'm drooling because this just looks and smells amazing. As you can see, once you take it out, it's still really creamy and cheesy. Let's take a bite. My goodness. If you like thawed, you're gonna love this. The pastry is flaky and delicious. The filling is creamy yet so pull-apart cheesy. It's almost like a creamy pizza filling without the tomato sauce. So good, so delicious. You guys are gonna definitely love this one. If you'd like to print out the recipe, head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com. The link for this video, if you're watching on YouTube, is underneath in the description box. If you're watching on Facebook, it's right above the post, so click on there to get that recipe. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. If you wanna learn how to make thawed, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, us.